You turn on your mic.
I'm with you. Thanks. As soon as we get on the air. Okay. Well, good evening. It's Thursday, June 7th already. It's 6:30, and we're going to welcome everyone to the council meeting for the Village of Royal Palm Beach. So please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jacqueline, I almost said Diane. Please let the record show that all members of council are present, and also let the record show that you're in tonight for Diane.
Okay, thanks, Nate.
Thank you. Well, as I said, school is out, and we're in the beginning of this, what will be summer in another few weeks, in June already. I understand that everyone has had many comments, and I'm sure maybe I'll hear some tonight about the Seafood Festival. I don't know if any of you plan on reporting on that. But if that be the case, we'll start out with you, Sonia.
Do you want me to report on it, or you want somebody else?
Whoever you guys are going to report on. I figured we'll hear some comments from some of you.
Good evening, everyone. Actually, there's a few things that, since we had a long break in between here, but the mayor and I attended the ribbon cutting for the Image Studio 360, and this is a really cool concept. It's one bay that's in the Costco Plaza, but there's 29 individual businesses that are in that area, and they're all in the health and wellness field. So it's really neat that there are 29 entrepreneurs in this one space. We all attended the Citizen Summit, and thank you very much for everybody who came out. And I went to they call it the topping off ceremony, but it is the property on Southern and State Road 7. So they're at that halfway point right now. They were talking about that they have $26 million already invested in the property. 150 people work on it daily. And then they were doing a barbecue while I was there, just as a thank you to all their staff. And they used local businesses. So they did a raffle. All the food came from a Royal Palm restaurant. All the raffle prizes came from Royal Palm businesses. So that was really neat that they did that. I attended the final Young at Heart luncheon of the season. So it was really nice. It was a luau theme. And check on our website, royalpalmbeach.com, for events and things coming up, because they still move and book things throughout the summer, and things are filling up with there. We have our very first little free library in the village, and the Franklin family did this themselves. So it is a box in their front yard that is there. It's unlocked and it's open, and anyone can come in, take a book, leave a book, whatever they want to do. And she's in the process of putting these, working with the village to put them throughout the village as well. So it's a really neat concept, and she said this way she's getting to know a lot more of her neighbors that have just moved in, and she's working with the local schools as well to complete that. I think we all attended the Seafood Festival, so everyone can talk about that. My daughter loved the mermaid, so we had to take pictures with her. And then the public library system has kicked off their summer reading program. So every year they do this, and there are prizes that you can win for reading, and it's available for children through adults. So they have various prizes depending on your age group and then how many books you read and things you do. And the other thing is the library system this year is taking part in the free food program. So you can go and get lunch or snacks every day, Monday through Friday, at all of the public libraries, as well as through many local schools. So that's my report.
Okay. No reports, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Jeff.
So last week I had the opportunity, I was invited to sit on the school district's interview and selection committee for picking the next principal of Cypress Trails Elementary School. And it was a very interesting experience. Actually, I see Carmen out here, and she was also on there. The two of us kind of represented the community. And the board itself was made up of 3 members who were actually principals and 2 who were teachers at Cypress Trail. So a really good combination of folks who were posing the questions and eventually did the evaluations. I was very impressed with the structure, with the rigor, but even more impressed with the exchanges between these professional educators as they discussed each one of the candidates, who, by the way, were extraordinary as well. So I walked away with a better understanding of how they go about selecting that really, really critical position of principal for schools. but also the quality of the educators we have. I was thoroughly impressed. I suspect Carmen probably would agree with that. They had 10 candidates, so it was a long day of 30-minute interviews, but coming out of that was a recommendation of 2 individuals who went forward, and then ultimately 1 individual who was selected. So the new principal for Cypress Trails Elementary School will be a Mr. Bruce Salter, and my sense was, watching the 2 teachers who are members of Cypress Trails, they thought it was a good selection as well. So we will certainly welcome him at the next Education Advisory Board meeting, and I'm sure he's going to bring a lot to the community and to the school as well. I believe he's a resident also of Royal Palm Beach, right? Yeah. So that's really neat, and it was a great experience. I really appreciated the opportunity. Earlier today, I attended this month's economic luncheon with the Central Palm Beach Chamber of Commerce. Not too surprisingly, the topic was hurricane preparedness. I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like we just finished a hurricane season. Here we go again. The principal speaker was a vice president from Tropical Shipping, and his name is Rick Merle, and he had a lot of insight from last year, especially with regard to not only Irma here, but also Maria as it swept through Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. What he did was try to remind us, first of all, we were very fortunate that Irma kind of dissipated, even though it was big. It wasn't nearly as intense as Maria was when it hit. He took some lessons learned and shared it with us from Puerto Rico in particular, but we probably know some of these things. One of them is the importance of fuel and the accessibility of fuel. And he indicated that one of the problems Puerto Rico had and is still having to some extent is gaining access to fuel. That fuel exists, but if it's not distributed or made accessible, then people can't really be transported from one place to another, and that is one of the critical things, as well as generators and things of that nature. So I think we did a pretty good job. The state did a good job of prioritizing fuel access and availability. It just reminded us to do that again. And then on an individual level, he kept asking the question, are you prepared? Do you have a plan? And the follow-up was an interesting one, and he said, have you shared that with your family or others who ought to know what your plan is should we be hit by a significant hurricane this year? And then he extended that to the government, and he said, I'm sure you all do, but do you have a plan? Does your plan include caring for your employees' families? Because if you think about it a moment, if the families are in a position where the employee is concerned about them, they may not be as readily inclined to come to work and do their job, which is important for recovery. So he brought that up. I thought it was a good point, not only for government, certainly, but also for businesses. So again, it was interesting. It was a good reminder. I brought to the meeting a new pamphlet that the village staff has put together called Know Your Flood Risk. And the good news and the bad news. The good news is it's a really good, informative pamphlet about flood risk, about identifying where you are in a zone and whether or not you're in a special flood hazard zone, whether or not you got a history of flooding, and the things that you can do to protect your property and that type of thing. And of course, it talks about insurance and other things as well. The bad news is we've already had record amount of rain in this past month. And so we're kind of set up for flooding even earlier than coming up on a major hurricane or something of that nature. But anyway, I'm sure that you can gain access to this pamphlet. We left a bunch behind, as did other municipalities at the luncheon. So I think that's a really good thing. And I think that's probably a FEMA community rating system, if not a requirement, certainly something we're encouraged to do. So it's definitely a good thing. There's no two ways about it. More information about a really important consideration. And then finally, well, I already covered that. So that completes my report.
Okay, but since you mentioned about the amount of rain we've had and flooding, actually, our system for handling excessive water in the village acted in a superb manner. I mean, it was it was a very, very good barometer of how we are able to handle excessive water in the village when some of our surrounding cities had problems, even with the amount of rain we had. And one of the things that we do continually, there is an active monitoring of pond levels and lake levels throughout the village where we have the ability to bring that down. And we were properly positioned when all these rains did hit. So we did a good job, I think. Well, it worked the way we expected it to work, I guess. So hopefully it'll continue that way.
Yeah, hopefully.
Thanks, yeah.
There you go.
You done? Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just one invitation. So the Philippine American Society is celebrating its 19th anniversary of the annual Philippine Summer Festival. It's going to be on Saturday from 10 to 5 at the South Florida Fairgrounds. I bring this up because they're a really good partner to Caribbean Americans for Community Involvement and our Cultural Diversity Day. So you should go out and support them and check them out.
This Saturday, Jan?
This Saturday, 10 to 5. That's it.
Okay.
Right.
I do have one report. We are less than a month away from our first meeting in July, which is also our budget workshop. And we can say that we don't have any day-to-day business that would be affected if we moved that July 5th meeting to July 10th. We've had this conversation for the last couple months. Now that we're where we're at with all the business that we do have, I can tell you that it would not affect any of our day-to-day business if we move that meeting to the 10th. So if it's the council's wish to move that to the 10th, I would just need some consensus
Do
from
we
the
need
council
a
to do so.
consensus? Anyone concerned with
With
that?
me.
Everybody's okay with moving it to the
I know
10th?
we talked about it, and I looked afterwards. I have a work meeting that night. Is it possible to do it the 12th, the following Thursday? And I'm sorry I didn't say this earlier.
I'm
Keep it on, otherwise, I mean, if it's just me, then go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't
Just
say
stand
anything
back
ahead of
there.
time, so.
My thoughts are if we move it,
Dan is back there.
shouldn't move it if somebody has a conflict.
Well, but if it's just, I mean.
I agree.
Well, it's supposed to be
I agree
on a
too.
certain date. If one person can't be, if you can't be here because of it, I don't think we should move it then from the 5th.
Will you be here?
That doesn't make sense
No, I
to me.
agree. I would want everybody to be able to attend.
Our attorney will not be here the 12th.
Oh, man.
Are you right to do it on the 5th, or you didn't?
We could.
Was there any reason why we had to move it?
We can leave it
Well,
on the 5th.
The thought was, and if no one has plans of being out of town that week, because it was usually when the 4th falls in the middle of the week, people take time and they take the rest of the week off. And
Right.
But if all of you are okay with the 5th,
I can be here.
Not the ones who have to work.
Yep.
huh?
All right.
The ones who have to work, it's our job to be here on the 5th. So
That's right.
Okay. I guess
Okay.
we're staying with the 5th.
We'll leave it with the 5th. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
That's it?
Thank you.
Jennifer?
I have no report, thank you.
Okay, so that will conclude our reports for this evening. Does anyone here have a petition for the council? Now would be the time to bring that up. A petition. Hold on, I'll get to you. You don't have a petition, do you?
Yes,
No, you want to have a comment. You want to make,
yes, I have a comment to make.
all right, a petition is something,
Oh, really?
that's okay, no problem. Seeing no petitions, we'll close public comment for petitions. Now, if anyone has wants to, and I have one comment card for an item not on the agenda. So, Juan Pagan, please come forward.
Good evening, everybody,
Good evening.
and thank you for having me here tonight. It's my first time here, so you know, I'm going to be navigating as quickly as I can. Like I said, my name is Juan Pagan. I do represent the Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for Palm Beach County, and also the Florida Hispanic American Chamber of Commerce for the whole state. I'm president of both entities. You know, our main goal is to work with the communities, work with the business in the community, help those businesses develop further, and make the community grow. To that effect, we put a series of events during the year. One of the things that we do, we have 3 major events. One is called Fiesta de Pueblo, Party of the Town. We've been doing it for the last 10 years. You know, we've been in Palm Beach County since year 2005, Broward County since year 1995. But one of the things we've been doing at Green Acres Park, we've been able to partner with the city, and we get the Green Acres Park one day, that Saturday right after, it's called Three Kings Day for the Latin community. That's a lot of meeting because that's when the kids get presents. That's a Santa Claus for the Latin kids. And this year, we have over 2,500 people to attend the program. we were able to provide gifts and presents to over 600 kids, you know, and in cooperation with organizations that are members, like Target,
Yes, sir.
Walmart. I'm sorry?
Jacqueline, you need to set the clock?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right, continue on.
Anyway, we partner with many of the businesses, and businesses also across the board that we have are people like FPL, a member, Palm Beach County Sheriff is a member, Home Depot, right here in Royal Palm Beach, is a member. And one of the proposals that I sent to Mr. Liggins, you know, in an email was about the city of Royal Palm Beach to become a member, become what we call a trustee of the chamber. With that, your information is continuously posted on our webpage. Our webpage gets over 61,000 hits a year, you know, whether on purpose or by mistakes, but they get there. And the thing is, you have your own logo of the city that could connect directly to your availability of employment, your availability of programs that you may have going. So whatever you have going for the city is about, you know, working together, you know. And again, in the measure the community benefits with that, you know, hey, businesses also move forward. And that's what we are about, you know, moving businesses and getting to go together. One of the things we also would like to do, we become members, and we would love to become, you know, you guys to become members of us. Do a salsa fest. Can you imagine people dancing salsa at the Commons Park? That would be awesome, you know. And guess what? The population, Hispanic population in Royal Palm Beach, about 20%, give or take. But you have also the Caribbeans. They dance at the same rhythm. They do. And it's about, again, the food. Hey, we share a lot of the similar places, a lot of same customs that we like to do together, you know. And again, do you have the name Puerto Rican Hispanic? Do you have to be Puerto Rican to belong? No. That was a legal issue when we came here in 2005. We want to call it Hispanic, but we could not because there was already one. So in the spur of the moment, we said, okay, Puerto Rican Hispanic. But also we created the big umbrella, the Florida Hispanic American Chamber of Commerce for the whole state, from Tallahassee to the Keys. That's what we do. You mentioned hurricane season. Well, one of the big things, you know, we've been involved, when the Keys got hit, we started, you know, collecting for the Keys. Also, when Puerto Rico got hit, we sent over 2 million pounds of donations across, you know, to Puerto Rico. One of our members, FPL, we were able to get FPL to go and work in Puerto Rico in spite of some political issues we don't want to talk about, you know, that was happening, but FPL was able to get down there. You know, that was great. When FEMA, I went make a deposition in front of the county commissioners about how Palm Beach, how many people, they asked me, how many people in Puerto Rico is going to come to Palm Beach County? My answer to them was, okay. And they asked me, where do they register? And I said, ma'am, if you move from Florida to Georgia or South Carolina, North Carolina, any state, where do you register? And she goes, huh? Exactly. They are U.S. citizens moving from one place to another one. We were able to get FEMA to open operations in Miami and Orange County, you know, to make it happen. Thank you. I would like to pass.
All right, I just want to be clear. Your principal point, though, you were asking, I've been notified you made a request has been made for the village to join your chamber. So,
right.
Okay. You wanted to comment?
Yeah, I'll wait till you're finished handing out the stuff. Yeah, I just had one question, Juan. Thank you for the work you're doing, and I'm looking at your website here, and the one question I had, because I reviewed the information that you had provided to the village manager, are there any other municipalities in Palm Beach County who are trustees?
Right now, that's a good question. They are not.
Okay.
But you know what? But that would be a big step, because you will be involved in everything we do, every decision we make where participation is required.
Okay, thank you.
Selena?
Actually, I have two questions. Number one, what is the fee for the trustee level?
Trustee is $1,000 a year. It won't break the city.
And my second question is because I did sit on the committee for Salsa Fest down in Green Acres. So are you moving it? Are you considering moving it from Green Acres to Royal Palm, or you're not having it anymore?
Let me clarify that. That Salsa Fest initiated was what another group,
Another chamber.
another chamber.
Correct.
You know, so it was not us.
Right.
So we're talking about we've been having that program in Broward County, we were having it in Hollywood City, we're having it in different places, and we're saying, okay, we can bring it here. It's not exclusive to that.
So it would be a different Salsa Fest,
Exactly.
but
They still dance good.
I have a question. Good evening. How do you differentiate yourself in the organization against the Hispanic Chamber of Palm Beach County?
How do I differentiate? That's a great question. One of the things is, for example, it is that none of our directory membership, none of the leadership demands a salary. This is a volunteer work. All my life, I worked myself for over 33 years in the pharmaceutical industry, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the country, Eli Lilly. I retired with them. I worked for other companies, but I'm not ready for the rocking chair. I'm not ready for the nursing home. So we got to keep acting. And I was working with the Puerto Rican Hispanic Chamber in Broward County since year 2002. So I continued working. When we came here, we continued working with it. And it's a passion. It's about caring for the community. Whether they're Hispanic or not doesn't really matter. It's about working together. Somebody mentioned the Philippine Festival. Mm-hmm. What's happened? My company sent me to the Philippines for 7 years. I know the culture very well, and they do party good too. So I know them well. It's amazing.
Jeff?
Well, we have partnered with CAFSI, as a matter of fact, on a number of activities. And yet I don't believe we have a formal membership with them as a entity. This proposal or this question about being a trustee member is something different than I think. In fact, I don't know that we have that relationship with any of the chambers at this point in time. From my point of view, it might be worth just trying to see whether or not for a year or so it works to a mutual advantage. I like the idea of a salsa fest here, and we're always looking for something creative and something different. We certainly have the space, and we are being very creative in the way we use Commons Park, so maybe that would be a good fit. So I might be willing to do it on a trial basis kind of a thing.
Okay. All right. Let's separate the points here. There's a separate discussion I think we have about whether the village should be a member of the chamber. We're a member of other chambers, as we are now. Right. So I would put it in that category that we're part of other chambers and we're an inclusive village, so we'll consider that. In terms of an event, that should be a separate discussion and something I would want Lou Recchio involved in and kind of giving us a recommendation, helping us understand how we would do that, okay? With that said, I have asked that the item of us deciding on joining the chamber be included in our budget workshop, because we'll have to allocate the funds, obviously, so it'll be part of the budgeting process. And I'll give all of you more time if you want to get more research done between now and then.
Yeah, no, but I have one last question.
All right, go ahead.
Please.
You do events then in Green Acres, correct?
Yes.
Why have they not joined the chamber as a municipality?
Why? Okay, that's a very interesting question. We created a partnership where we signed the contract in advance. So essentially, they are quasi members, so to speak, because type of relationship we have. We do work with their health programs that they have being in the community. We work with their employment. We work with whatever the needs are in the community. So it was developed. The idea of having a membership came out, why not? It is about getting your name publicized in our website. We do about 4,000 or 5,000 emails a week, and the logo of the trustees, and the trustees are in the middle pages, you saw them over there. All those logos are there. So whoever doesn't know you, it will get to know you well, because at the same time, have the link to get to your web page, of the official web page of the City of Royal Palm Beach. So that's an advantage, And there's a laundry list that was in the email that I sent, for everybody, And we talk about 12 months company logo on the chamber web page, company name mentioned on all events. Whoever is your representative to our monthly meetings, and sometimes we have twice a month meetings. You can bring your own table and set your own information, whatever you're discussing, whatever might be the problems of the village, at the current, or the opportunities at the village, that you may have. And that you will be able to publicize that on a regular basis.
I think my issue is because with chambers, you can look at it and say, is the point of a chamber is to generate revenue for your business. And we're not the same type of business as your other trustees where we are looking to generate revenue. So I think that's where I'm just a little different is the trustee level.
The only money coming out of you will be that membership fee, unless you want to buy an ad on that journal that you have, business journal you have in front of you. That's up to the city if they want to buy it or not. It's not required. And that's what we're saying. None of us, not even the CEO, not even the chair, not even the director, get a salary. It's about volunteer work. And it's something that we enjoy. It's something that we really, have a lot of passion about. So, no, it's not a fundraiser event that we do.
I just want to, I guess for context purposes, I look at the request for us to be a member as a member. What the title is of the membership is what each organization calls it. So I wouldn't put too much credence on
Well, there's
the
different
title.
memberships, because he's talking about at a level, a trustee level that is more.
I think trustee level means something different here than it means in central. That's my point.
Exactly.
Part of it is
trustee level for us means
We're a
that
member of the central. We are a member of central. So, like I said, give it some thought, folks. We'll make a final determination at the budget hearing.
And before I left, I want to remind you, we established, working with the Guatemala Mayan Center for the tragedy in Guatemala. They have 4 collection centers, that they've been collecting donations of all types. So whenever things like that happen, we hope it will never have to happen here in our county. But we always say, present, we are there, and that's what we do.
And that's the Guatemalan Mayan Center in Jupiter?
That's the Guatemala Mayan Center in Lake Worth.
Okay.
I just have one more question, Juan. I'm sorry, I pulled up your website and I noticed here, I just clicked on membership and I see a bunch of members, and a bunch of members appear to be people running for political office. Is that correct? You have members who are running for political office that are members of the chamber?
Yes, some of them run for political office, some decide to become member, but it's because they're becoming members out of their own practice. They might be lawyers, they might be, other business owners and all that. We cannot withhold anybody's desire to run for office. No, we do not endorse.
You don't endorse candidates, or that's where I was going with it.
No.
You don't do any of that stuff, because I see.
We do not endorse candidates, we do not endorse political parties.
Okay, thank you.
It's about the community and the business.
Any other questions?
No.
Thanks, Warren.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we have, I have no further cards for items not on the agenda this evening or items on the consent agenda. If anyone would like to, now would be the time. Seeing none, I'm closing public comment then for non-agenda items and for our consent agenda. And with that, Jacqueline, can you give us our consent agenda?
Thank you, Mayor. Number 1, approval of minutes of council regular meeting of May 17, 2018. Number 2, approval and authorization in accordance with established policy to make a budget amendment for Fund 102 and 303 in the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. Said amendment to transfer $50,000 from Fund 303 designated fund balance to Fund 102 to increase PR 1801 accent lighting Veterans Park. Number 3, approval and authorization for the village manager to enter into an agreement with Ultimate Lighting for the removal and replacement of electrical service, ballards, and accent lighting throughout Veterans Park. The cost not to exceed $150,000 and is piggybacking from Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners term contract number 16021B, which is in effect through April 17, 2019. This project, PR 1801, is budgeted in account number 102-7200-572-6399. Number 4, approval and authorization to issue the American Legion Post number 367, a grant equal to its regular meeting space rental costs for its monthly meeting at the Recreation Center for the period beginning June 7, 2018 through October 4, 2018, in the amount of $200. Number 5, approval of an application for a special events permit by the CrossFit Liger to conduct their fitness competition at 583 105th Avenue, Unit 7, on Saturday, October 7, 2018, from 7 o'clock a.m. until 5 o'clock p.m. Number 6, approval of a bid award in the amount of $120,512.94, and authorization for the village manager to execute a contract with the lowest responsible bidder for court repairs, PR 1205, to Sport Surfaces LLC.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from members on council? If no comments, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed. Jacqueline, please let the record show that the consent agenda was approved 5-0. Okay. We're going to move now to the regular agenda, and we'll go with regular agenda item R1, which is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Royal Palm Beach, Florida, repealing resolution numbers 98-20 and 16-18, which regulated the Village Education Advisory Board, and adopting a new resolution constituting the board and restating the terms and conditions under which the Education Advisory Board will operate, providing an effective date and for other purposes. We have comment cards here this evening. Would you like to hear comments first before you report out on this, or should you just report
I
out?
think it might be helpful if Ray and I explain
Report
what
out?
the
Okay.
changes are.
Go ahead.
So first, I want to start off with, it is a change. And why are we initiating this change? It's a combination of complaints, inconsistencies, and a desire to formalize existing practices. We've listened to the complaints and the comments that have been made over the many years that we've had the Education Advisory Board, and tried to incorporate in this resolution everything that addresses those. So I'll let our attorney go over the details of that. The timing, why now? We timed this to be right after the last meeting of this last school year. We wanted to bring it to you as soon as we could after that to get a resolution that we could have and then advertise the positions and hopefully get something in place with this new resolution, with whatever the rules will end up being prior to the school year starting. So with that, I'll turn it over to our attorney and let her go over the details of each of the sections.
Okay, thank you, Ray. As the manager said, this resolution is designed to address numerous issues that myself and Ray have heard over the years from different people all over, just talking about where the board has been, where it could be, how it could be better, how it could be improved. So I'm just going to try to go through this as quick as I can, and at the end I'll be happy to take any questions you all have. The first part, this section 1 under the resolution, this is the repealing of the old Education Advisory Board and reconstituting it. The thought process is, because we are changing board setup, the cleanest way from a legal perspective is to actually repeal the board and reconstitute it. So that is what we're doing tonight. With repealing it, the proposal is to repeal the existing board member seats as well, and then we will address appointments at a later date once council has decided when the advertisement period will end and how many applications we do receive.
Just on that point, though, people could still, if they could choose to, they want to continue to serve, could reappoint, could reapply?
Of course.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, of course. Section 2, the old resolutions involving the Education Advisory Board did not really flesh out very well the purpose of the board. So what we tried to do in section 2 was give more definition to what the board is designed to do, what council has stated in the past that it wants it to do. And the first one is, the board shall serve as a liaison group between the Village of Royal Palm Beach, the Palm Beach County School Board, and all public and charter schools which are located within the village, in order to improve and enhance communication between all parties. Sub B is, the board shall promote and provide public awareness for programs, opportunities, and initiatives of public and charter schools located within the village. C, the board shall recognize and promote accomplishments of students, educators, public schools, and charter schools located within the village. And D, the board shall monitor school board activities and report on those impacting the village as needed. Schools located outside the village of Royal Palm Beach, this was in the old resolution, that's not within the board's purview. They're not supposed to consider activities occurring outside of the village. Section 3, this is a new section. This is talking about how the board is going to be set up. We've had issues in the past. The advisory board members are all appointed at the same time, I think. Isn't that right, Jacqueline? Like all 5 every 2 years. And the issue with that is if you were to have major fall off, you'd have a lot of resignations. You have no historical perspective on the board. So one of the comments that came out of strategic planning was we would really like to make the education advisory boards set up like our other boards and have more staggered terms. So that's what this section 3 does. You're still going to have 5 regular members and 1 alternate member. 3 of those regular members are going to be appointed for their first term for a 3-year term. And then the alternate and the other 2 regular members will be for a 2-year term. After those initial terms expire, then we'll be on an every 2-year term basis, but it's to set up the staggering so that you're not going to lose that institutional knowledge if you had a lot of resignations. Okay. The second paragraph in section 3 is set up to state, this is just like before, 1 council member shall serve as a liaison, but they shall not have any voting power. And also you can have a student liaison from Royal Palm Beach High School. Again, that is the same as you had in your old resolutions. Then I just added some language in here about vacancies and how those are filled. Those are going to be filled just like your other boards are filled. Section 4, the qualifications. Part of this is a new language. One of the issues that we've been having from a staff perspective, and I know from a council perspective too, is when you do have vacancies, we're having a very hard time recruiting people to apply for this particular board. And one of the thought processes was that we were maybe a little too restrictive in the qualifications. So we're trying to open that up and get some more qualified people in. So the way this is written is board members have to be village residents, which is the same as it's always been. They shall either have a background in education or experience in education, and this is the new part, or be a member of a PTO organization or PTA organization. One thing we can talk about tonight is, do you want to open it up possibly to other parent organizations with schools like the SACs, or if there's something else, another organization you all are aware of, so we can talk about maybe adding that. I did put in here too, because this was a specific thing that was addressed at strategic planning. We have a lack of parents with children in our public schools on our education advisory board right now. So I've put a line in here that special consideration for applicants will be given to people that have children currently enrolled in a village school to try to fill that gap, because that is definitely a missing component on the education advisory board. Also, starting up at the top of page 3, this is getting into disqualification factors for people that are on the advisory board. The first 2 are the same as the old resolution. They cannot be an employee of the Palm Beach County School Board. They cannot be an employee of an organization funded by the school board, such as a charter school employee. There was a 3rd disqualification factor in your old resolutions. It was they cannot be a member of the boundary committee. We took that off. We don't really see why that's a conflict. We kind of want that expertise. So the number 3 and number 4, these are new. It says that a board member shall not be an employee of a charter management organization or a charter education management organization. And then number 4, I know we'll probably be talking about this one tonight. I put in here that basically no vendor of the school board, a charter school, or a school can serve. And the thought process is we do not want to have anyone sitting up on the dais trying to promote their own personal business, services, or products. They're here, they're getting FaceTime with the school board. They need to be focused on that task. And that is consistent with our ethics rules that apply to our advisory boards that deal with village business.
That's consistent with all other committees.
There's this weird kind of situation we have with Education Advisory Board. They're having FaceTime with schools. Right. They're not dealing specifically with village
Or
applications or applicants. Yeah, and so it was trying to add in some of the ethics requirements that we have to deal with that relationship they're having with the schools. Section 5, this is talking about the Education Advisory Board's duties. Sub 1 is the same as before. Their main priority is to do the scholarships every year. I did add in here a new line, though, to deal with an issue that we've had recently about attendance at the scholarship interviews. I put in here that attendance at the scholarship interviews is mandatory, and failure to attend one or more shall result in removal, since that is their main job. Sub 2, this is about the school showcases. This is something that the Education Advisory Board does every single time they meet, or I think almost every time they meet, but it was never actually formalized in the resolution. And this is when the individual schools get to come in and do their presentations to the board. So we thought this was a good time to actually codify that practice. Formalize it, yes.
Good, okay.
Number 3, this is a new initiative for the EAB. This is a school liaison. So one of the ideas that had been floated was having each member of the EAB be a liaison to the different schools, the 5 public schools in the village and the 2 charter schools. The chair would be a liaison, I think I had it right, this, a liaison to 2 schools. And the liaison duties are really just to check in on the school and see what new additional needs they may have, and then they can bring that back to the EAB for discussion. And if they need to let the council know, they can always let the council know. Number 4 on here.
Interesting enough, I think my memory is correct. Many, many years ago, I think they used to do that. I think somehow they got out of that. We used to have that in place, but I'm glad that we're getting that back in there. And then once again, memorializing it and codifying it is one of the official roles. Okay,
correct,
good.
correct.
That's good.
And then number 4 is a new initiative as well. This idea was floated around, and every year the chair will have an opportunity to give an initiative to the board, and the initiative will be of an informational nature. So, for example, if the chair is really interested in the school board's efforts to get another half-cent sales tax, do an educational session at the advisory meetings and let the public know, hey, this is coming up. You all may want to pay attention to this. It would be out of an informational nature, but it's a chair's initiative that they can do throughout the year. We'll talk about in a minute how the chairs are going to be rotating every year now. So every year a new person will get to have an initiative. Number 5 is just other duties that the council may assign to the board from time to time. Section 6, this is the meetings, organizations, and procedures section. A lot of this is already what we do with all of our boards, just trying to formalize it. I did put in here specific meeting dates and times. These will be the set schedule for the EAB. It will not deviate unless there is approval according to the resolution. But there will be 9 meetings for the year. And they're at set times and dates, and we've tried to set out when the school showcases will be, and then also when the legislative update will be, which is usually their meeting in May. Going on to page 5, we have officers. This is where we are talking about the chair and vice chair. Under the existing resolution you have, the council liaison actually selects the chair. We're, again, trying to make this more like our other boards, so the board now will select the chair from its own members. They will decide. And the chair will serve for 1 year, and then they will rotate. They can't serve more than 1 consecutive year, but they can come back later and serve again.
Okay.
Quorum and voting, this is all just standard stuff, and rules of procedure, just standard stuff, trying to codify existing village practice. There's really nothing in there of too much substance. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, very good. Before we take comments from council, as I said, we do have comment cards this evening. And we'll start with Clemmy Christie. Come on down. Longtime member of the EAB.
Good evening, council members. I am one of the old EAB members, not as old as some of the others in here, but I go back through
I don't know.
when I came to this. When I came to this council and became a member, I was a new parent in Royal Palm Beach and moved here in 2001. I have been a member of this board since 2002 when you had an opening. And if, according to the resolution that you have, I oppose it. I think that you need to go back and relook at things, because when this board was first started, everything that you're trying to add now was already in there. We did do all of that, and when this board was disbanded was when all of these changes came about. You can't have a board that can't work with their liaison. The liaison is supposed to be the complement to us to get back to you. And for instance, you were mentioning school board. It's the school district. The school board is not a separate entity. We report on what's going on with the school district, and we want you to see what this board has done. It's been a viable entity, and that we even helped get Wellington and some of the other cities around the country and around our town get started with this education advisory board. We've been instrumental with all of the schools. We've always been in the schools. This board, the council, decided that we should not be in there anymore when they disbanded the board. So everything that you're trying to add, if you go back and look at previous resolutions and when this education advisory board was started, you will see that those existed long before your time on this council. And also, you can't have an education advisory board without having educators. It just can't work. I'm not an educator, I'm an accountant, but I do know that you need that involvement to be able to know what's going on in the schools. You're saying that we should not have people who are with the school board or school district or the charters. This board was started because you wanted parent involvement. There are parents who live in this village. I pay taxes in this village. If I have a job just like any council member, I should still be able to go for a position. You've made it more of a job and you're not paying me. And I just want you to reconsider the resolution and oppose it.
Now, the terminology school board versus school district, is that significant?
I followed the old resolutions. If council would like to change it to district, I did not choose that word. It's been in the resolution since the 90s.
All right,
so
whatever the right term is. I know we mean the district when we say
I have no
school board.
preference. It's if you want it to be district, it can say district. I don't want anybody to think I just stuck that in
Let's
there.
say
It's been in there since the 90s.
Yeah, it's the district. Okay.
Can I offer a comment on that?
On what?
What you're discussing, the school board versus school district?
Yeah, go ahead.
There are places where the phrase school board really doesn't have much of an impact, but when you talk about employees of, the employees for the most part, unless you're talking about the superintendent, him or herself, is
We're talking about the district. We mean district.
Yeah, so the district might be
It's a technicality, but.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good point, okay. David Kendall, come on down, another longtime member. Now, I'm not commenting on your age. I'm talking about how long you've been on the EAB.
Thinking it, no.
No, I wasn't.
I am Dave Kendall. I guess Clemens, I am one of the old members. I am the oldest member on the board. My only problem with this new resolution, one or two problems with it is for as an educator being on our school board. We've had Renata Espinoza on our school board. We've gotten more information for her because she does attend the meetings in Tallahassee. She's very tuned into things that's going on there that affect our town. I'm the type of person, I advocate for every kid in the state of Florida. I volunteer at schools. I don't advertise it to anybody, and I don't tell people which schools I volunteer at. My wife and I, we donate to the school. We don't advertise it. But but some people think that we don't do anything else because we don't advertise it. Now, for as a educator being on our school, but we need that input from the educators. Because if you notice, the educators, they sit in our meetings, they come to report, they will not say anything. We need someone on there to help advocate for our teachers who are parents here in our town. I enjoy being on this board. We've done some things that the board asked us to do. We stopped the charter school from setting up business across from our high school. You asked us to do that work for us. We did it. We go to the school board meetings when we need to. We're in touch with our representative from the school district. I'll leave the board along the school district. So we do a lot that some people don't think that we are. So the mandate that we belong to a SAC or PTO, I've been on 4 different SACs in this town. You know, it's time for other parents. And we're talking about getting parents. It's very difficult to get parents. I think last year, Jeff and I and a few others, I went to Cypress Trail to a SAC meeting to beg people to apply for this board. And we didn't get one, not one parent. We went to Cypress Trail. We didn't get one parent. So the old timers have just been here to try to keep things going. And if we have to, we'll still keep going. So I hope this resolution goes down.
Thank you. Renata Espinoza.
Hi, my name is Renata Espinoza, and I just want to talk to you about, I'm on the Education Advisory Board, and I'm a principal also of a charter school. I'm one of the principals that won the Tax Watch Principal Leadership of this year out of all the principals in Palm Beach County. I am an educator, but there's some faults in this resolution, some errors that I have to bring address to the attorney, and I'd like to address certain things to Mr. Liggins. If there is a complaint or a concern of any of us on the EAB board, there's called a communication, and that's what's lacked of, because if there was something wrong with our EAB board, I would have been like to be the first one to know what kind of comments or complaints that they need to bring to us that we like to hear. Everybody likes to complain about something, but if we don't hear it, we can't act on it. We can't correct it. So that's one thing I don't like. I need to have the communication too. On the Education Advisory Board, I have gone to the CRC, which is the Constitution Review Committee. I was the only one there from going to Nova University. I brought everything back to talk to our lobbyists when it was Vern Crawford, and it was when now changed to Andrew White, and then our school board member, Marcia Andrews. I'm there to listen to our stakeholders, which are the parents, the students, and teachers. When it came to the Bright British Scholarship, I was the one who was asking questions, not to when it was at the League of Voters of the League of Women where I attended, where some of the school board members are, but I had to ask about our teachers here in the village of Royal Palm. I am very big on the education here. I protect our village schools. I am very much, when it comes to our schools are not Title I's anymore, and when our principals came and complained that you have students who are your low 25%, and you can't pay teachers to teach those kids who are on the low 25%, where are you going to get the money? Then it comes the grading. Then it comes, you want people to live here in the village? They want A-rated school. So I make sure that, okay, what do we need to maintain our A-rated and have parents and people coming in with all this big, beautiful development that's coming in now? People want to know what kind of school we have, if it's an A-rated school, a B or C. People don't like to go to schools with C. So I'm very much in touch with telling principals, go to your council meeting, go to where you have to go to see how we can get funding for our teachers to do tutoring for our low 25%. Some of your resolution here, example for the charter schools, just to let me explain to you, and you can call the charter department. Charter schools are not funded by the school district. Charter schools are funded by the Department of Education. Money goes to the department of our school board, and from there they pay us. We get paid by the charter school. So I get paid by a school that's in Lake Worth. So the money doesn't come from the district. So and then there's a point of your scholarship, just to if you have a parent that has to attend a scholarship and their child is going to be in that scholarship and she or he's at the committee, then you have a discrepancy, because that can vote for someone to say, oh, well, everybody vote for my child if that child's graduating from Royal Palm Beach High School. So I really would like you to ask the Education Advisory Board, ask their input about the resolution. That's the way you can communicate and get things done.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay. Lynn Balch, another long-time member.
Not old.
I'm not commenting on age. Let me be clear.
All right. Well, I want to start
I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't win that, okay.
Weren't you on the rec board, sir?
I was. I want to comment on this on a couple of issues. I think the advisory board has done some really good things, and I want to look at that just a minute. You know, a few years ago, you came to us and said one of the big complaints was that too many students are leaving the village and too much talent is going elsewhere. And we took that as a challenge, and our opportunity was to try and make the village a center of excellence for education. I think in many ways we've done that. I would suggest that just the channel of communication we create with the school district, with the area offices, with the principals themselves makes a big difference. They all come to our meeting, they all report every meeting, every time. I think that's a big part of what we do. My point being we do more than scholarships here, okay? I think we've helped create that K-12 continuum. If you ask anybody here in the village, in the schools, they know what that is. The point being we do have one now. We have IB, we have AVID, we have SECME, we have STEM. If you don't like acronyms, I don't have time. But the point being, we've got, in business and computer programming are also a big part of what's going through. These spots are being filled in. We are becoming a center of excellence in this village. It takes a little while to do it, but I think we've helped with all the communications. We've made some progress, to say the least. I would agree that communication has helped us get specific things, and they've mentioned some of them already, so I won't go to that. I think we have gotten things specifically accomplished for our schools because of our communications and connections with the school board. I will also point out, yeah, it's a Palm Beach County School District, not the school board. You do need to straighten that out. Yeah, it makes everything else a little bit irrelevant if we don't know who we're talking about. But to your resolution specifically, I think one thing, the purpose, I think you need to address that we need to be able to address legislative issues, state and local. Now, you did mention the initiatives, and I think, yeah, other issues that come up before the board do involve things other than just scholarships, et cetera. I think we need to be proactive more than reactive to everything, and I think that needs to be our approach. I'll talk about the selection of people on the board. I commend you for wanting activists and wanting a lot of experience. That's all well and good, but I will say this, my experience is if you worry about just having parents on there, what we'll find out is why, or what we'll have questions about is why Paul is having trouble in math class with a teacher. Too often we just get misdirected if that's all we have. Having experienced educators is also important, I think, but somebody who taught social studies in Minnesota 10 years ago may not be able to help us a whole lot. I'm not saying they don't belong there at all, but you can be overloaded with any of those. I will address the same issue everyone else did about what I consider an absurdity of that question 4, I think it was, of people who can't be on the board. Basically, you could have just said anybody who has any activity or involvement with the Palm Beach County School District, in any way shouldn't be on there, which to me is an absurdity I shouldn't even have to repeat. That's crazy. Why would you not want to have people on there who could give you information? That just makes no sense. I'll leave it at that. I've had my 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And we have Carmen Campbell. Did you want to speak? You just want to say that you're opposed to the resolution? If you want to speak, you got to come up. Okay. All right, let the record show that she's opposed. Okay. I have no other comment cards on this agenda item, but if anyone else would like to speak who didn't submit a comment card, I'll welcome you to come up now. Did I miss one? Oh, I'm sorry, Elaine. My bad. Come on. You do want to speak? Okay. Elaine Gurley?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to speak, but I feel like I need to speak after hearing the resolution and hearing people speak. I am a 46-year resident of the village. I am a teacher in Palm Beach County for 32 years, most of it in this village. And I am appalled at the thought that the education board, I'm also a former education board member. I had to step down because my son was very ill at the time and couldn't give the board the necessary time that it needed. But I'm appalled that you are disqualifying educators as part of the board because that is what the board is supposed to be. In my mind, I don't know how else you're going to get information when you don't have people who know what the information is. And it's very frustrating for me to sit here and listen to that resolution when it's about education and you're disqualifying educators to be on the board. So I think that you need input from educators, you need input from other people in the community, you need input from the current board who has worked their tail off as a teacher in this village, very proudly in one of our schools in the village, an elementary school. The board works very hard to help us in our schools, and I think you're being very unfair to create a resolution where you did not give them input. So I ask that you reconsider and give them input as well. I think that this needs to fail this evening and go back to the drawing board and have necessary parties come together to come up with a resolution that is fair and what's best for the kids in our village. Because currently I don't think what you're proposing is what's best for our kids in the village. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Last chance. Anyone else would like to comment? Come on up, sir.
Good evening. My name is David Aden. I'm a former resident of Royal Palm Beach. And listen to my daughter, Renata Aden. She's an educator. She's a superb teacher, very dedicated. I'm a retired engineer first, manager of NASA. I was one of the early engineers, Hispanic engineers working with the astronauts. I trained Neil Armstrong, Aldrin, all these astronauts to land the spacecraft on the moon.
That's pretty cool.
When I hear this conversation, the deficiency that you guys have in here, it really hurts me, because our country, I'm not talking about Royal or Florida, I'm talking about our country, is failing, I'm telling you, to really train and encourage elementary, high school kids to become the engineers that in my generation were, okay? And I have to admit, one of the greatest fault that we made is to come up with the computer. Nowadays, kids don't use their brain because the teachers are not able to do that. They want to do that, but because of the curriculum they have now is to use this little gadget, and they spend 8-10 hours. If you tell them a very simple arithmetic, oh, I have to get my little machine because that's the only way I can be able to get the answer. In my generation, it didn't happen that way. We had to use our brain. And the teachers nowadays are failing to do that. That's why behind, when we look at the world in terms of technical expertise, at one time we were number one in the 50s and the 60s. Now we are on the bottom. And when I see that you don't need you're lacking the inputs of educators in your business, you're failing. My encouragement to you is bring the educators, because they are the core of this country here, okay? They are the future scientists, the future engineers, the future whatever, make this country great. If we don't do that, we're going to fall in which we are. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. With that, I will close public comment on agenda item R1. Before I open up to comments from council, I'd just like to put some context and perspective around many of the comments that were made. It's interesting how something starts out as a good idea, and you establish a process or a vision, and people get involved, and when people get involved, it takes on its own life and goes off on its own direction. To some degree, I think that's what's happened over the years with the EAB. Just to put into perspective, the reason why this village established the EAB to begin with, and you'll remember this comment, many years ago, we didn't have a high school here in the village. The word was out that the district was looking to build a new community high school within this region, and that village council that was in place then decided that they wanted to go out and go after getting the district to convince them to build that high school here in Royal Palm Beach. And that was the reason why they established the EAB as a working committee to pursue that initiative. Obviously, it was successfully achieved. We've got a lovely high school here, but it wouldn't have happened if the village council hadn't made a determination at that time. They wanted to go after that. They weren't going to sit by. And when they established the EAB at that time, you know, over the years, we've looked back at it and said, you know, when you create a committee like that who has a specific mission, you know, if you don't put in place a sunset date, you know, well, when the mission's over, what do? I mean, the gentleman just talked about working with NASA. NASA went through a period of, okay, we put a man on the moon. Now what do we do? And what did they do? They cut funding, they cut, you know, because, well, the mission was accomplished. Obviously, there's more for us to do now. In fact, when I talk to young people, I had a chance to address the elementary school a couple of weeks ago, and I always use that opportunity to tell young people who are in school, I want you to think about a career where you're going to be part of putting a colony on Mars. All right? We need to get our young people thinking about that now, because I'm telling you, by the 2030s, the mid-2030s, I think we're going to be there. But we won't get there if we don't get our youngsters, young people, to start thinking about that now and get excited about that. And NASA is going to be doing it on their own, working with private companies. But the point I'm making is, just to give a context, is we kind of had a little bit of that, I think, happen with the EAB. The other point I want to make is that we do have a school district here, and it is a separate agency from this village. And I've been in many conversations, and I won't name the names, with the superintendents over the years in the school district, where their attitude was very clear. They didn't want to hear from elected officials in different cities about how they run this district for education. They made it very clear that although we may have schools physically located within the boundaries of our city, we have really nothing to say about how they're run and what's done with them. You know, by virtue of that, we have this thing called the boundaries, all right? And we've got kids coming into our village who live nowhere near this village, all right, who are going to our high schools. And I think we recognized that when we finally figured out we had a problem with the high school, and we had teachers in a middle school telling their parents, don't send your kid to Royal Palm. We had to deal with that problem. Fortunately, we had an EAB in place that we could say to you, can you guys do something to address this issue, all right, and socialize it. Now, here's the thing where we got to be careful of not going over the line. We are not responsible. Yeah, we want A schools in our village. Why? Because it makes property values go up. But more importantly, one of the cores of our village is this is a place where families feel they could raise their children. And when they come to a place to raise their children, the first question they ask, how good are the schools in this village? But the job for making sure that there are A schools, it's not our job. It's the school district. And I don't know how many times I have this conversation with citizens about how many tax dollars you, the citizen, are already sending up to the school district, even if you don't have kids in the program, all right? It's more than $20 million a year from our village alone, just to let you know that. That says, wow, you know what? We've got to figure out a way of communicating and interacting with the school district, because our citizens are paying their tax dollars to have A schools in our village, even though they may not even have kids in those schools. That's the reality. So from a city perspective and working with different agencies, we have to strike that right balance, and we do not have an expectation that the EAB should shoulder that responsibility. That is not what we've specified in the mission statement. Now, I understand the passion, and I understand the notion of wanting to be part of something that's special, and wanting to create things that make our village stand out and make it special. But we have to do that within the context of what it is the mission really needs to be about, and not have the people like yourself who don't get paid to do this. You bring your skills and your knowledge and your abilities to the table as a volunteer to represent this village on the area of education. So I just wanted to put into context what our vision is and what it has been or what it is now. And I think what our effort tonight is really about is codifying and formalizing and saying to you, here's the mission we'd like you to follow. And we're not asking you to go above and beyond what we're asking you to do in this mission statement. I think that somebody mentioned that we had this before. I think we opened, our attorney opened with the comments that in order for us to move forward and put in place something that's more specific, give more specific guidance to address many of the complaints we've got, and believe me, I've gotten the complaints too, and I got tired of getting these complaints. I said we need to do something to make sure there's an organization model in place, and that as the council, that we've given specific enough guidance that should, put some parameters around what direction the EAB should go, but more importantly, put parameters around of what the council's expectations are of the EAB. All right? And I think that's what we're really looking to accomplish tonight. Now, I'm going to open up for comment from council. One of the comments we keep hearing about is not letting educators in, let educators. It was never our concept to create a board that was sitting with members, people who are actively in the education business. In fact, we wanted parents and we wanted retired educators. Now, anyone who's committed 20 to 30 years of their life to a career, because they're retired, they don't lose their knowledge. They don't lose their skill set in that career, all right? In fact, they're probably better now than they were then, because they can look back and say, boy, I wish I knew what I knew then, what I know now, when I was actually in the middle of it, all right? And they kind of got out of it and they could get a different perspective. That is what we wanted. We wanted retired educators, and we wanted parents who wanted to be involved. We didn't want to create something where people would use that as their own personal platform to further, whatever part of the world that they're in terms of education. And I'm sad but true, that has happened. And our way of dealing with this is saying, okay, we're going to create a model, and that's what this is, this resolution that will keep that from happening and keep us on the right track. And that's the reality behind that. I've said this before. This is a voluntary committee, and it is a committee that serves at the pleasure of the council. This is not a committee where somebody can come to the committee and decide this is what they want to do in the direction they want to go in. No, it's got to be within the confines of how we structured this. We have a council liaison. A member of the council is a liaison to this committee, and the purpose of that role is to be a formal conduit from the council. If we want to communicate to the committee, we communicate it through our liaison, our council liaison. If the committee has something they want to communicate to the council, they communicate it through the council liaison. So they have a formal channel, all right? And that relationship, in terms of the liaison working with the EAB committee, has to work well, all right? It has to work in a smooth, cooperative, and respectful way. And that's the bedrock of this structure. It's the structure we have in place for all of our other committees, all right? We have a council liaison, and they serve the same role. I think one of the things that we've included and really codified also is the committee has to run itself. The committee will select who their chair is going to be. All right? We used to operate that way. I don't know, maybe we got away from it. We had a situation where we rearranged everything, and I won't go into why because it's not material to tonight's discussion. But we wanted to get back, and when we had this discussion at our strategic planning meeting, the consensus was we wanted to get this committee operating and set up similar to how we operate the other committees, and give the committee the autonomy of the things like who they want to be as their chair and their vice chair, those kind of things. So that was part of what we wanted to do too, in putting this together. So having set that context, I am open up for further comments from members of council. Richard.
I guess I'll just go down the list. I think a lot of the stuff that's being done in the resolution makes sense as far as the structure and purpose. And I'll go down to, I guess my first thing is, and most of the comments from people, most of which were members of the board, is in section 4 on the qualifications or disqualifications, more importantly, but on section 4, number 2, it says what the members shall have a background in education and experience in the field of education. And then it later on says special consideration will be given to village council and board members currently enrolled in the village, children currently enrolled in the village. But the way I read that first one, they're not qualified unless they have a background in education or experience. So I would either move up education or background and experience, or a parent with a child in the school system. And it doesn't, in my opinion, have to be one in the village school, because, as we know, some people send their children to schools that are out of the district, or out of our village. So that's one suggestion as far as...
Can we just tackle that real quick? 'Cause
Okay.
I need to make sure I understand what you're saying. The way it's worded, and there may be some confusion out in the audience, it's board members shall have a background in education and experience in education or be a parent.
No, it says,
Or
or a
be a
member of a
member.
parent organization or these
Right.
other things, but...
Right, but it's an or. And then after that, it's special consideration will be given by council in the appointments if you have two equal applicants and one of them has a child in the school system.
Right. And
So that's what it says.
Yeah, what my thought is then put parent in, you shall be either a parent, because if you're a parent that doesn't have, I mean, if I were not a council member and I involved in my school and I want to be on the education advisory board, the way this is worded, I can't be. Correct?
No, not the way I read it.
Okay, where in there where it says, I shall either have a background in education and experience in the field of education, or I'm not on a PTO or a SAC or whatever it is, how can I get on if I'm just a regular parent?
No, well, so the thought process was at the very beginning of time when this was created, it wasn't open to all parents. They still needed to have the background in education.
Okay.
So that's staying the same. If
So
you
you're
all
saying-
want to change that now and just open it to every parent in
Here's it's interesting. What I read was you may not have an education background, but if you were a parent
And involved.
or if you're a
and you were working on one of the
Right.
SACs or
That
the,
is correct.
that's the way I read it.
That's correct, but it's not
Okay.
open to every parent. You either have to have a background in education
Or
or
be
be a
involved
member
in one of
and
the-
be involved.
The
yes.
SACs or the PTOs.
Correct.
That's the way I read it.
Right.
You got it differently?
Oh, no, that's the way I read it, which is, precluding just regular Joe parent
That's correct.
who's involved and
She said
enmeshed
that's
in the
correct.
process.
But she's saying-
Which I'm saying, I think it should be open to regular parents as well.
Okay, you're saying you don't have to be on a SOC or PTO?
That's
PTO.
what I would, yes.
All right,
That's just one, and then going
you got more.
further from there, the disqualification stuff kind of bugs me, because I know some of the boards we have difficulty in getting enough people to apply, and limiting those things is probably not the best thing in my opinion. So
Well, I will say for the record, because this was also misstated earlier, number 1 and number 2 here on the disqualifications, those have been in the resolution since the EAB was created. That was not something
That's not
I
new.
created.
Right, yeah.
That's not new.
Okay?
Well, those are just the qualifications. I'm, I guess, going on to the
No,
disqualifications.
So this is the disqualifications. As the mayor stated, this was not set up to have a bunch of school board employees sit
Right.
on this committee.
Right.
Which makes
So
sense.
number 1 and number 2 were designed to address those
That from
things.
happening, yeah.
Yeah. Number 3 was designed to cover a loophole that was listed in number 2. And number 4 was about vendors that maybe have contracts with the school district or with a charter school. That one is just one that I tried to put in a broad conflict prevention measure. If you all think it's too restrictive, that one, it's just for your consideration tonight. You have every right to revise that.
And I guess that's one thing I would suggest is something, but I appreciate, because I'm a lawyer too, I appreciate you're trying to do something and the goal you're trying to accomplish. I don't know that this is the best way, but I'm trying to think of a better way, and unfortunately I can't.
Did this address
At
it,
this
though? I
point.
thought this was addressing that.
Right.
The changes
Well-
she gave us. No?
Well, that's just taking it out. That's not addressing.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
In it-
as Jennifer said, the thing is, and as you said, Fred, you don't want people coming up and just preaching or having a platform or having a thing to serve their own goals. And I get that, but I don't know if we can accomplish that goal. I don't know that this necessarily accomplishes that goal. I am in support of that goal, but again, I don't like the limiting of, okay, this is what your job is, this is, you can't be here. If we can say, okay, this is what your job is, but as long as you don't do this, then we're good.
Let me ask you want to add to that point?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on that.
Yeah.
If you look at the underlined last sentence on the revised page that was given to us. I think that's what our attorney was trying to do, not just remove that Bowlegs 4 paragraph, but to replace it with words which address the intent of that paragraph the way it was written, which is additionally board members shall not use board meetings or their titles as board members to promote or advertise their outside employer or business. And so that was going after what the intent was of, I think, that fourth paragraph, because I had a problem with it also. I thought much along the lines of what you just said, that we would wind up so limiting the people who would qualify that we would find ourselves with a real problem at some point, just not having enough people to apply who fit the criteria that we're seeking. So that was more, I think that last sentence, and I saw it for the first time just a few minutes ago myself, was the intent of that fourth paragraph. Take that paragraph out, leave those words in, it accomplishes the same thing I think that was intended.
What part of the fourth paragraph? Should a board member? No, you said take something out. What did you say?
Yeah, take out Bowlegs 4, that whole paragraph.
She already did. Well, the first part, that was crossed out.
No.
It was a suggestion for your
Okay, so you agree with what she's recommending?
Yes, I
okay.
agree with that.
All right.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me ask this question, though. Are you finished? You got?
Well, I guess not.
Paragraph by paragraph?
Yeah, well, that's,
Yeah, on the same
well,
paragraph.
on the same paragraph, I just, because of what I do for a living, I find it kind of difficult to say, okay, look, these are the things that are going to disqualify you as being, like, if you're an employee of the school board, you can't be on the recreation or the education advisory board. But we don't have anything saying there, well, if you've been convicted of a felony, you can't be on there.
You always say that.
So
That doesn't even apply to running for office. Come on. All right.
But that's just my point. If we're going to limit, or we're not limiting things that I would consider more important, and we're putting limitations on here that might be difficult. And if we're gonna, we'll go on to the next one after the next four.
I agree with Selena. Let's get consensus on each paragraph. Otherwise, we'll be all over the. You want to comment on this?
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
whether we eliminate it or not, and if we eliminate it and really go to this, additional board members shall not use board meetings on their title, blah, 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 that sentence, to add that, and not to be put in the resolution, but as a common practice, a standard conflict of interest signing at the beginning of each term, so that each board member has had that on record. They will not have any conflict of interest, and they won't be bringing up any, I work for the school district, or I've done something, or.
So I talked to Councilwoman Radusky about this idea. We do need to have some criteria about what you define conflict of interest to be in here, because the conflict of interest for this board dealing with the school district is a little different than your realm of conflicts of interest that you deal with as a council member. So we do need some definition for that. But Councilwoman Radusky had a great idea that every time a board member is reappointed, they sign a certification form reaffirming that they meet all of the qualifications still, because we don't really check that. We just reappoint people. So
Good point then. Okay.
Good.
All right, so going back to if we take piece by piece, so with with that portion specifically then, if you're saying as far as eliminate section 4 and add in that line on the bottom that's double lined over there, my concern is that you're still giving face time and the relationships are still being built. So even though you can tell me not to use these meetings or my title in order to advertise or promote my personal business, I've now been in front of you and been given the opportunity.
In front of who?
The school, anybody from the school,
district.
anyone,
Okay.
any of the school. If I have a business that I have anybody in the school district that is my client, and you're telling me, well, I can't use that as my to promote my outside business, I've now been able to have access to you that I may not have had before.
But let me ask a question though. Are they really in front of the school district, or they're just in front?
No,
of,
I'm saying, so for instance,
no, let
okay,
me finish.
right.
Or they're just in front of our local school principals and staff.
Okay, so I sell widgets that the school that all 7 of our schools use on
Yeah, but the local schools don't make the decision on that. That's made downtown.
Okay, then let's use, and an industry then that the local school can use or the individuals can use, great, you know what, there's a program that something. The point is that now you're giving me access to all of these principals and all of these schools and FaceTime with them, so I'm building this relationship with you. So hey, you know what though? I do have these widgets, and I think it would be great if they would incorporate it in your school. Sure, let me pass this along.
So you're saying is after a meeting, they went to one of those people and says, hey, can we get together for coffee tomorrow? And then tomorrow at coffee, they talk about the widgets?
I'm saying is that you're giving them, I know, what I'm saying though is you're giving them FaceTime and relationship building time one-on-one that they may not have had before, and that's my issue about having businesses that, or individuals that do business with schools or clients or whatever, whether it's the district level or the local level. That was my concern about it's this, just because you take out number 4 and add this line here, that's not stopping that.
Well, I was going to, my question really to Jennifer was going to be, how do we enforce that?
So if you happen to watch an EAB meeting in the future and somebody's just blatantly up there saying, oh, well, I have a product that could address that for you, it would give you grounds to remove that person.
Well,
that's different.
Well, I would expect the
Anyway.
liaison to report that to us, and so we could.
But what Councilwoman
action.
Smith is speaking to, Mayor, is exactly why number 4 was put in there. It's the FaceTime idea. That's, again, we're trying to define conflicts of interest in this unique setting.
Richard, what are your thoughts on that? I haven't gotten that additional context.
Well, I definitely understand where Selena's coming from. I just, and more geared towards the business part of it. I guess the employee part I don't necessarily like, and then I like the suggested language. To me, the board members shall not use board meetings or their titles as board members to promote or advertise their outside employer or business, period. I mean, that should, to me, that should be all of that should be everything. Section 4 should be just that, in my opinion.
You'll say everything else in section 4 should that be there?
Well, I guess, let me see, the disqualifications or, because the section 4, 1 and 2, where it says you have to be village residents, background in education, which I would add parent as well. And
So you're saying 1 is okay?
1 should be fine, or to me, 1 is okay.
Okay, go ahead.
2 is okay with adding parent.
2 is okay?
Board members shall, 2 up top.
Am I reading the wrong? Oh, I'm reading.
I'm going from the beginning.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. 1 is kind of.
Keep going.
Section 4, board members shall be village residents, and then board members shall either have a background in education and experience in the field of education, or be a parent, I would put in there, in addition to the added language that Jennifer had included that's underlined.
Okay.
And then, to me, the following village residents shall not serve on the board. I would probably eliminate everything except for that last thing that Jennifer had written, the additionally, I would just say.
The last paragraph in item 4 is the only thing you would keep.
Just the last sentence. Board members shall not use board meetings or their titles, because to me, that's what we're getting at, right? I mean, that's your concern, Selena, right?
So you're saying put no constraints on whether or not somebody is employed by the district?
Correct. I don't like the limiting.
What's the consensus on that? That 1 point specifically?
So just so that I'm clear, so we are talking about the paragraph that is Bow Lakes 4, right? That's what we're talking about?
What
Say,
Rich is
just
suggesting.
take that out.
He's suggesting
And
everything
replace
come
it
out
with?
except it start right here where we say additional board members.
Okay.
Well, it really would say board members.
Which
It wouldn't
again
say
goes
additionally anymore.
for the intent, which
Yeah.
is to,
Right.
not
What-
abuse.
What he's suggesting is we don't have
relationship.
any restrictions, but if someone who happens to be in that situation violates it, which is what that last sentence says, they'll be removed.
They can get removed at any time. But
That's what, am I quoting, am I got it right?
that is what
Okay.
my thought process is.
So what I'm asking
correct.
is, what's the consensus on that from other members of council?
Well, I guess I'm still a little confused. So are we
I say
talking about
something?
Bow Lakes 1, 2, 3, and 4? Or are we just talking
Yeah,
about?
all of this. He's saying,
Wow,
start here.
okay.
Everything else goes.
Mayor, can I add something before
Go
you
ahead,
make
yeah.
comments on that? I just want to,
Interesting thought.
so the idea of a school board employee or an employee of an organization funded by the school board, i.e. charter school, that's in our current one. And what you're looking at doing is changing that to allow school board members. There was one thing I heard by one of the board members that said that the board is a good place to have advocacy for teachers. I do not think that's what we want our board to do.
That's not a mission that we want them to do.
So I think if you open it up to existing teachers and existing school board members, then I think the comment about additionally, board members shall not use the board meetings or their titles as board members to promote or advertise for their outside employer or business. So that, not even advertise, but even advocate.
Okay.
If you're going to allow school board employees, we do not want, I don't think we want our board to be a place for them to advocate their position towards their employer. We did have that in the past.
And that was a problem.
Yeah, I don't know that we want that.
No, we don't want that.
So if you open it, and that was why it wasn't opened up to school board employees that are currently working. We do want educators. We absolutely want people with education experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or private
We don't want
educators,
them
according
on
to the way
board
this is written.
advocating or their position with their employer.
Okay.
Or for that matter, to be in a position of conflict of interest, which would be you're sitting up here and your principal's sitting out there and you have something you really, really think needs to be raised and a concern, and you have the insight, and yet you're concerned it might not be career enhancing to bring that up, kind of a thing. So, you know, it puts someone in a very difficult position either way, whether they won't say something that they would like to say and perhaps ought to say because of their job, or the opposite side, they're saying something that perhaps they ought not to be saying as a result of their job and maybe disagreeing even with the principal. Right. It's a difficult position to be in. It really is, and I understand that, although I can tell you, of course, we didn't have a situation, well, no, we didn't. So I haven't seen that with the current Education Advisory Board at this particular point in time.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly I don't think we want, as Ray pointed out, advocating or advising folks with their personal agendas, for sure.
There's one more comment I would say on going back to the purpose and how this Education Advisory Board is working. Everybody who got up and spoke said all the good things that it's doing, and it is doing good things. Mayor, you said earlier about our lack of influence on the day-to-day operation of the school board and the allocation of their $2.4 billion. And there is that. We use this, I think we're using the board now to allow our schools to showcase their excellence. And they are doing that. And that is a significant purpose of this board. You have the scholarships. That was kind of the number one thing. The second thing is that these meetings are positive meetings that showcase excellence, because we have a lot of excellence in our schools. And watching those presentations given by their schools, they put energy into it, they put effort into it, and they come, and that's what they do. And that's what we want to encourage. Right. We don't want to encourage conversations of the day-to-day minutia that may be going on at the school district. Right. Because we don't have control of that, we're not going to influence that, and that's not what we want this board to be. So that was why we deviated from that in the past.
Jeff?
I was just going to pick up on what the village manager said. The communications that's been established with the board and the school district, as well as the local schools, has probably given us as much informal influence as we could ever expect, and it comes through the relationship, but it also comes through some identified mutual benefit. One of the reasons that principals show up, one of the reasons that the school district, the regional office shows up, one of the reasons that our school board representative shows up is they see value in that. They do, and when we have no formal authority, which, as you pointed out, we do not, what you're left with is either no influence or finding an informal way to influence it. Mm-hmm. And by providing something of value, we immediately have some influence we wouldn't have otherwise. And so there's no doubt in my mind that the Education Advisory Board really does enable us to make things happen in our schools we otherwise wouldn't be able to.
Okay. So where does that leave us with this language? This is language, as you pointed out, this is not new,
Right.
right? So I think the question is, do we leave all this language with the recommendation that was made, the modifications that were made by Jennifer in terms of sub-item 4 of section 4?
I think you should leave it the way it was before.
How about you guys?
Go ahead.
I recommend
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would be in favor of the new language.
The language, the way it was updated tonight?
Wait, and we're just talking about item number 4,
Right
correct?
now, we're talking about item 4, section 4.
Yep.
The whole section, because Richard called in the question, the whole section.
Paragraph.
Okay. You?
I agree with the revised version here.
Okay.
I think one comment with regard to what Richard brought up about the open to all parents. The intent of talking about involvement in the school was to get parents who are involved in the school, therefore bring some knowledge and insight. I think there's some reasonable consideration that could be given to the school liaison positions, providing something like that going forward. So, you know, maybe all parents is not a bad thing.
But that's why I wanted clarification, because that's on another section. We're just discussing section 4.
Oh, no, that's
that
in
is
section
section
4.
four.
That's up in subsection 2, the second, section 4, 1, and then 2.
Right, but I'm looking at, okay, so I'm looking in, I'm looking in
Paragraph
section 4,
4.
paragraph 4. That's the only thing I'm commenting on. I'm not commenting on the other parts because I agree with, we can go back and look and change other things like that. So for instance, subsection number 2, if that's what Councilman Hamer was talking about, is different than what you just asked us before. of Could you comment on section 4, subsection 4?
And I'm trying to get us to agree on the entire section 4.
That's what
Then I'll tell you,
that's what
okay,
the mayor put in. And
Then that's something different.
All
then
of
because,
section 4.
Okay, so,
But now, having said that, on what Councilman O'Mara said, paragraph 2 about board members shall have a background, I think we're saying that we want to put something in there that makes sure all parents,
But-
is that what?
have an opportunity.
right, because I think what
It's one of my
Councilman
suggestions.
Valentis had suggested, it should say in there specifically, because right now you're saying is that you have a background in education and experience in the education field, or a member of a parent or teacher organization or parent-teacher association, and that's it. It's ambiguous as far as being specific. As a parent, I can. And then we also talked about other groups that are out there that if they're the SAC groups and things like
Well,
that.
we
So
could-
it should,
It could be an et cetera. I mean, there are, you got.
but
the
then word it
facts.
specifically then if that's what
That's what I'm
Councilman.
asking. So how do can we adjust that language to?
Well, it's in here,
What it
underlined. And,
it
and that
says-
was the
Oh.
intent. It says,
Oh,
school
you did
advisory
that.
council
I was
or.
ready for you guys tonight. I knew
Similar
most of
organization.
these issues.
Okay.
Right, trying to be more broad.
But the other line
Right.
didn't open up to
All.
another category
Right.
of all parents.
Right,
It was
exactly.
either- It was either
Right.
with education and experience in the field of education, or a parent who's already volunteering at the schools.
Exactly. So what Councilman Melendez was talking about was opening it up to
And my
that.
suggestion was open it up to people like me who have to work and can't show up to the SAC meetings at 4 o'clock,
All right.
and I want to
So
be
what
involved.
do we have to do to accommodate that? What do we have to add in there? No,
Just-
I'm asking.
Or parent with a,
Or,
I would say
or parent,
with children currently enrolled in the village school.
Okay,
is
correct.
that okay?
Yeah, at least on that part, yeah, that would do it.
that's fine.
Do you want it limited to a public school or a charter school, or do you want
No,
it to be
just-
any school?
Do you want to
School.
limit to a parent with children in the school?
Or in Royal Palm Beach schools.
I said a village school.
Right,
Village
village
school.
school.
Yeah.
And it needs to be public or charter, traditional or charter.
You don't want the private schools?
Well, if we do that, we're expanding the scope
No.
of this because we
should
don't
include
currently
privates.
include
No,
them.
No, that's a whole different,
Okay, I need to make sure.
Right.
So, all right. So it'll be with children currently enrolled in a village public or charter school.
So in other words, I'm excluded if I live in the village and I send my child to a private school?
yes.
Yes, but you're not precluded under the preclusions.
Okay.
So then you're good. Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me either, but
Sounds
okay.
like legal talk to me. I don't know, but okay. All right, so once again, where are we? On all of section 4, where are we? Do we have?
take one by one because it gets confusing. So
All right, where are we at then? We're
starting
down-
number one. We all agree on number one?
Yes.
Yes.
Number two, with the modified language?
The modified version, not the original
Right.
version.
No,
Yeah.
right? We agree with that?
The addition of the parents,
Okay, now we're down to the following residents shall not serve.
children in the village school.
Item one. Item one.
And that was part of the original, right?
Right.
And we did discuss what the rationale was for that.
I think we did, yeah.
Good.
So I'm okay with keeping that.
Me too.
Not me.
I know, not you. Selena?
Yeah.
Number one, I'm fine with.
Okay. Number two,
Likewise.
likewise?
Yeah.
Same.
Number two, I can see if I am an employee, if I'm, one, what I was looking at is that if I'm an employee, because the first one is that's everybody, and it's basically like you're reporting on your boss. The other one is an employee organization funded by the school board and things like that. I think that they should not be village ones because we're also having a showcase as well. So if you are one that is not in the village,
You lost me.
so what it's saying right now is that it's all, anybody, no one can, and that excludes a lot of our educators, correct?
Well, that was the object of the exercise.
No, what she's saying is if you work at Suncoast and you live in the village, we want you on the board, right? That's what
You
you're
could
saying.
qualify, correct?
Saying if you, yeah, but doesn't that go back to item one, because you're working for the district?
Yeah,
Well,
it does.
a charter school outside,
Same
not
thing.
Suncoast, sorry.
So,
I'm saying it shouldn't be a village school because of that. I can understand that there's a conflict, especially when we're highlighting village schools, but if I work outside of the village in the school district, then I don't see a conflict.
No, I think number one precludes that. Number one says the school district.
right, it
That's
does.
the district, that's the whole county.
But number two, she's saying it's charter school people who are not in the village is
Number
what she's
two-
saying should be okay, right? That's what I'm getting from Selena.
What you're saying
Okay.
is okay if you work for a charter school.
Outside of the
I'm
village.
saying if anybody's outside of the village. Honestly, I kind of think that it's the same way. I think the same way with any of our educators. I mean, if we have a teacher who teaches at Suncoast that lives in the village, whose children, yeah, parent, I'm sorry,
But
you know,
they work for the school district. We're
talking
going in
employees.
well,
circles.
but
also-
you're
they
eliminating
have two
all of your
roles.
educators.
Well, the first item would eliminate you. So the second one, the third ones don't apply because you're already eliminated. So this
sounds like
is
she's
not-
coming my
Wait
way.
a minute, this is not new. This is,
Don't say that
Wait a
during
minute,
football
this is
season.
not new. We're just being, we're just codifying it to be very clear. All right. So this is not something we're inventing new.
I didn't say that. You asked me my thoughts. I
No,
said
I'm just-
outside of the
I'm just
village. I think it's
clarifying.
completely different
All right.
than the 7 we
Where,
focus on.
where are you guys on item two? So you're not agreeing with item two right now? Okay.
I'm okay with item two, mainly because even if you're outside the village of Royal Palm Beach, issues come up that have to do with the district.
Exactly.
And-
It's circular. Yeah.
And so sooner or later, you're going to bump into that, and you're going to have a potential conflict of one way or another. Either you're going to make a pitch for something that, again, by virtue of your position, you probably ought not to be using our Education Advisory
Right.
Board to do,
As a platform.
or you're going to be somewhat reluctant to bring it up because it's your job, it's your career. And even if you're over in Suncoast, you're talking about an issue that is district-wide, which oftentimes is what we wind up dealing with.
Which really, we shouldn't be.
But it flows down, and that's the reality is that something decided at the district level is something that affects our local schools as well. So
Yeah, but we're not going to affect that. We will never impact that. That's reality. But anyway, go ahead.
And
Jan.
as a reminder, this was already in the
What we
language
have
already.
now, yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with it.
You're fine? All right. I'm going to say I'm fine with it too, so we're going to keep it. Item 3, employee to charter management organization.
Yeah.
No.
I don't, no, I mean, I'm not for the limitations, other than the one at the end we have.
I know, I already have you
Yeah,
down
so-
to no for all.
I know.
So, okay, so he's got me, I don't
I
have to say.
already know you're a no.
So perhaps our attorney can remind us of why the
Item 3?
item 3 was put on there.
This was to cover a loophole in number 2. My understanding from why number 2 was originally put in is to prevent anybody that worked at a charter school from being on the board. It was the same idea as not having any educator or employee of the school district being on the board. And there was a loophole there based on the way that charter schools are set up. Charter schools are run by the management organizations or an education management organization. They're not actually, so the employees of the charter school are actually paid by the management organization. This was to close a loophole.
So it's really an extension of 2.
Correct.
Okay. Which is an extension of 1. Which is, I know, like, I kept saying it's a little chain, daisy chain, but that's okay. Selena? No? Okay. Jan?
I'm fine with it.
I am too.
I am too. Okay, item 4, we have new language presented to us where the first portion of that initial paragraph is now lined out, and it now starts with should a board member fail to maintain.
I like the original version better. I don't like eliminating.
What do you mean the original version?
The original version
The
has
non-strikeout.
number 4.
The way it was written originally?
Yep.
The person outside employee business that is under contract, you like that language better than what was,
Then taking it out, yes,
you like to keep it in?
correct.
Okay. Now, this is the one where you said the only thing you want is where it says board members shall not.
Right, but so that I would be against what's revised and the original.
Okay, okay, got it. Jan?
Still thinking.
Okay. Why are you thinking? You want to go, Jeff?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm okay with striking the sub-paragraph bullet 4, and so long as we keep the underlined last sentence. Additionally, board members shall not use board meetings, so forth.
All right, so you're saying you're okay with the strikeouts, and then where it says should a board member, you're okay?
Right.
Okay. Jan?
I'm fine with either one because I think that at the end of the day, it will fulfill the need. But I originally said I like the revised, so I'll stick to that.
So you like to revise too. I'm going to go along with that and go with the revised that was submitted. I think it's better than not having it, and so at least we got some consensus there. So, all right, Jennifer, are you clear now where we are?
Muddy.
Yes, so my direction is on the first subparagraph 2 in section 4. I'm adding in the phrase that you can also have people serve that have children currently enrolled in a village public or charter school. Right. Below that, the sub 1, sub 2, and sub 3 are staying in. Sub 4 is coming out, but I am adding in that underlined language at the end that says, additionally, board members shall not use board meetings or their titles as board members to promote, advocate, that was mentioned, or advertise their outside employer or
I thought
business.
we were keeping should a board member fail to maintain these qualifications.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
okay,
Yes,
Yeah, I thought
yes.
that was the.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
We're keeping that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you want me to add the word advocate in there? That was mentioned at one point. Promote, advocate, or advertise?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody agree? We should add that, right? Okay. Okay. I think that takes care of section 4. Now, Richard, you didn't
Section
get to finish
5.
the other sections.
Section 5, scholarships. The last sentence in sub 1, it says failure to attend one or more shall result in removal. If that's what we want to do, I don't know why we have or more. If one, you're going to get shall result in removal. And secondly, I would disagree with shall. I would say may or should, because, you know, if you got a sick kid in the hospital or you got a kid graduating or something's going on where, unfortunately, you know, this is a good responsibility, but there are other competitions in life and you shouldn't be ousted. But this, the way I read this is you're done if you don't show
All right,
up for the interview.
I was going to comment on this. I'm glad you brought it up. I think we need to have language that reflects, we have similar situations, particularly with the P&Z, about attendance requirements, right? With all of them. Right, well, but it becomes, because of the role of the commission, it has even more significance. I think we should say something to the effect that, hey, if there's a real reason why they shouldn't participate, they should be excused for that. if I'm a member of the EAB and I have a child or a nephew or something that's going to be coming before them, they should be participating in that. No.
Well, the current policy that we have does apply to this board, and it's if you miss more than 25% or 3 in a row, you're off the board. And the only excuse and that's 3 unexcused. But to excuse it, you had to be in the hospital or something very severe. It couldn't be. It had to be something very, like you were in the hospital or you had another village commitment that you were at. We raised on the scholarship thing because that is the number one priority of this board. And the timing of this can't be moved around a whole lot because of where it hits. So so the board gets to set the date of when that meeting is. So it was important. We were sending the message here that it is important that this board show up and do that.
Unless you have a conflict of interest. We have to, that's a real reason not to participate. It would invalidate, it would show.
Conflict of interest or a conflict of?
Scheduling conflict.
Well, it's got to be, like that. I go back to what I said before. We have real rules in place about excused absences. Right. Granted, this is once a year, but if somebody's, spouse goes in a hospital or a child isn't, there are sometimes circumstances that would mitigate that said, hey, it was real, they couldn't make it. All I'm saying is we need to at least allow for that somehow, all right? Not make it just absolute, no matter what happened in your life, if you didn't make it, you're out. That's all I'm saying.
I would recommend you use the same excuse you have in your existing policy and nothing different.
All right.
How many scholarship interviews are there?
One.
1 day.
It's one
day.
1 day.
1 day. Can I comment on that?
Okay.
Okay. So my comment is, I understand that it kind of takes the teeth out of it a bit, but it makes it enforceable much more so than does a May. And yet on the realistic side, even though, and I said certainly should be a consideration, when the date is set, there ought to be a substantial agreement. Everybody can make that. Now, having said that, you set it a month, 2, 3 months in advance, actually. And so the likelihood of, or the chance of something occurring that would get in the way of your attendance, that's a real world kind of a thing. What this whole conversation is all about is the importance of that activity. And I think we all agree it is the principal activity, the number one activity priority-wise. So putting a may in there may be a reasonable approach. It just isn't as definitive as.
I think we could use language that says the EAB members are expected to attend.
No, I think what I heard you say is that what you're doing is you're doing away with the 25%. You're doing away with the 3 in a row.
No, we're not.
No.
They show up or they're excused in accordance with the other policy.
That's not what we're saying. All right.
To get an excused absence in the other policy, there was the medical condition you could get excused.
So then why would not apply to this one meeting that you could get excused if you have a legitimate situation?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Use that criteria for an excused absence on the other one. Apply it to this.
Okay.
But what you're not doing is this isn't just one of 3 meetings. It's not.
No, it's for that one meeting a year.
25%. Okay. We're going to apply that criteria to this
one meeting.
To this one meeting only.
Yeah,
that's fine.
But it gives a legitimate. If there's a legitimate situation.
Yes.
Then it's okay.
Yeah. But wait, but then are you also saying I can miss 3 meetings of regular meetings and this one is my fourth one? Is a fourth one?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the 25% was taken away and the 3 in a row was taken away, but the excuse for an excused absence stayed.
Is that requirement? Is that correct?
But now you're
hold on. I'm going to fix this. I know what you're saying. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if this is the direction council wants to go in, I have set up the April meeting, which is always the scholarship interview meeting month. I've set that as a regular meeting. I'm going to set that as a special meeting. So then it's not affecting that policy and it's taking it out of it, and you'll have your own separate rule for that special meeting. And then I will still use the same criteria for excused absences that we have.
That makes sense?
That makes sense? Okay.
That's fine.
That makes sense, Richard?
Yeah, and then I don't know if this is what you meant, because I just thought of another way of reading this. 1 or more scholarship interviews, Jennifer, was the intent on, because, there's a lot of kids getting interviewed. So if you show up for 4 of them and you're not there for 17, to me, that's not being there. So is that, because I just read it that way?
I think that's how I meant it. It was, you need to be there for all of the interviews.
Okay.
Correct.
For...
Is that?
I would say failure to attend all of the scholarship interviews
counts
Right.
as.
And the only excused absence would be under the criteria that we cite for
Okay.
the general set of meetings.
And I don't know if I can ask the remaining school board members,
No,
EBA
public
members
comment's
here.
been closed.
Okay, so my question is then to the council, can you tell me how many EAB members do not attend the scholarship interview, and that's why this is becoming an issue?
We had
Oh,
3 this
yeah,
year
I
that
can
did not.
tell you.
That did not attend, okay.
Right. 3 didn't attend last time.
That's problematic.
Now,
But then what you just said is, but if you have a good excuse, you
We
can.
don't, let's not, we're not, see, this is why, I don't want to mitigate that. I don't want to talk
Okay,
about that.
all right.
That's okay. See? Please be respectful. What's not true?
No, we're being respectful.
Hold it, what's not true?
The EAB members were there for the scholarship interviews. You all aren't listening, and.
What's not true?
What you just said. that they
One
weren't there.
gentleman resigned and moved, an educator moved.
Which
This is why he wasn't there.
Okay.
right.
He wasn't on the
That's
board
true.
anymore.
And the other person had a conflict because they had a kid on there.
Okay.
So that was it. But our liaison is not supporting us, so I can't.
All right, let's not go down that path, please. Thank you. I think we've addressed it in a fair way, that if there's a legitimate excuse, you get excused. So that's really the
Right.
point.
And we,
Okay.
and we had 3 members of the Education Advisory Board attend all of those interviews, right? Yeah, okay,
Let's not,
right. 3
Okay.
people attended.
all right.
Can I
Rich, anything
clarify?
else?
And that's the last thing I had on any of them.
Can I clarify one thing before
Yeah,
we
go
move
ahead.
on from that section 5.1? There was discussion about the mandatory removal. You want me to keep that in now that we've added the criteria for
No,
excused
I think it's
absences?
whatever the rules that we have for the other.
It's
applies
mandatory in
here.
the other one.
Whatever those
Okay.
rules are, yeah, yeah. I think we said we would apply the same rules, right?
For an excused absence.
For
If
excused
there's an
absence.
excused
Right.
absence,
Right.
you're not getting kicked off. If it's unexcused, you're gone.
Right.
Okay. Richard's done. Now,
Number 6.
you want 6? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, does anyone else have?
No, Richard said he's done.
Number 6, the only thing I had is section 1, where it talks about the readings, and the third line where it says, or
Hold on,
second line.
let me find where you are. Section 6?
Yep, second sentence. The board may televise their meetings with council approval is, and I know what we're talking about is that because some of the meeting with the scholarship interviews is considered a meeting.
Right.
I
That
would,
doesn't get televised.
correct, but then I don't like this language because what was happening before is there's another meeting that was not getting televised.
What meeting was that?
That was a
planning meeting.
reorganization
Organization
meeting.
meeting.
Oh, yeah.
The reorganization meeting. So what I would like to do, or my suggestion is that all regular scheduled meetings be televised, because we've just said that, and I understand why the scholarship one wouldn't be, but
Right.
that one is a special meeting.
Sure, that's fine.
Where's that language? I don't see it.
It's the 3rd sentence.
So the
The
board,
board may televise
May televise
their
council
meetings with
approval.
council approval. It's a little bit different from
So you-
what we were trying to
Now,
do is
how-
get all of the meetings
how do we
televised.
govern the other committees? Do we say that,
They're all televised.
No,
do we use the same kind of language? I mean,
We don't have it in the, we don't
Okay.
have
Not
that in the
written.
resolution.
so we'll say the meetings that you have listed in this resolution will be televised, with the exception of the special meeting, which is for the, okay, yeah, no problem with that. I mean, because the reality is the council has the authority to cancel any televising of any meeting anytime we choose. But we wouldn't do it arbitrarily, obviously, but yeah, okay.
So does that mean the organizational meeting in August will be televised?
If it's a regular meeting,
it's a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
is there a reason why we wouldn't want that televised? I mean,
I don't know
when the
why.
I don't know
PEZ
why it
does
wasn't.
theirs, they're televised.
No, that was,
They're always wrapped into a business meeting too, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit different.
Oh, so when they have the organization meeting, that's the only thing on the agenda?
yes. that's
Okay, got it. All
That's the
right.
only thing.
But it should be televised, yeah, okay.
Right. That was a matter
So
of
we'll
fact.
agree with that then,
That
right?
got us to that. Yeah, that's fine.
Selena, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Jeff,
No, I'm
you
good.
good with everything else?
Yep.
I just want to say, I think there's a lot of good things in this resolution that we didn't have before. So I think there's a lot of good things. The liaison to each school. I think-
We used to do that, and I don't know how we got up, but I think that's an excellent thing, yeah.
I like the idea of.
And that does take a lot of work on their part, but it's important factor.
I like the idea of the chair having an initiative. I like the idea that the board will select their chair. I like that the agenda is set for the entire year. So I think there's a lot of good things in here. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay, any final comments?
No, I agree.
Any final comments, Richard? No. There are no further comments from members of council, then I'll look for a motion. And the motion must include the modifications that,
As already discussed,
Yeah.
as the attorney has noted.
okay.
Okay, so we're talking about, I'll make a motion to approve regular agenda item number 1 with the modifications as just discussed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. Jacqueline, let the record show that the resolution was approved by a vote of 3-2 with Councilman Amaris, Councilman Valentis and Councilwoman Smith declining.
Did you call me Hamaris?
I'm sorry. I call him Harrison.
We started to
I'm
say
sitting there
Jeff, and then you corrected it.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Any further? Okay, we're done with this then. Move on to our final item, which is...
We're on the race fund.
It's our annual review and evaluation and merit pay determination for the village manager. I sent out a letter to all of you a few weeks back, asking all of you to look at the criteria that we would use and asking all of you to have a personal one-on-one conversation with the village manager in terms of sharing with him your thoughts and evaluation of performance, et cetera. And that tonight we just want to do an abridged version of that from you as we go through this. So I guess we'll start with you, Jan, and just work our way down.
I knew you were going to do that. Well, I'm happy to start. So, Mayor, thank you for the criteria in really honing in on what we're looking at for an evaluation for our village manager. And what I try to do when I look against these evaluation standards is, from a very objective standpoint, looking at our mission, vision, values of the village in addition to the strategic plan. And when I go through each one of these, I think our village manager is hitting the high marks. So I'll just run through these really quickly with a few comments. And I've shared with Ray my feelings about his performance. As far as employee relations go, we can tell by the longevity of his team and the contentment that we see within the team that Ray's doing a really good job of handling these employee relations. Image of the village, and as far as intergovernmental, I see it through the lens of other municipalities that we encounter through the League of Cities and residents that people are really proud to live here, and we don't have a tarnished image, and that's part and parcel to Ray's management of information and behavior and all of that. Long-range planning and completion and direction of capital projects. I'm going to put these two together because they kind of tie both to the strategic plan, and his hiring of our strategic plan facilitator over the years. And it's really important that we have a plan, and him and his team are working it. And it's really impressive at the end of the year to know what we started with how much stuff has been really accomplished. Financial management. Our village is run on a conservative level. We know we've kept taxes low and not changed them in 100 years, feels like.
No exaggeration.
Exactly. And then just communications. We know that there's ways to communicate throughout the village, and we've expressed a desire to be more communicative. And so as part of the strategic plan, we've hired a consultant to help us with that, whether it's external communications, internal communications, proactive and reactive, and Ray's hitting on all of those. So I just wanted to say that I think he's done a great job. You've done a great job.
Very good. Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll go item by item as well. I'll try not to repeat what's already been said. Under employee relations, our human relations office seems to be well run, and just judging from the sense of motivation and interest and commitment from the staff. My experience has always been that it's a function of the leadership as much as it is the individuals, and it looks like a really good combination there. So with regard to image, much like Councilwoman Brodowski, I get to hear a lot of discussions at League of Cities and even Treasure Coast Regional Planning, and I can tell you, Royal Palm Beach has an excellent reputation. And image-wise, we've talked about a number of things. I mean, we've actually been recognized for being a family-oriented community and on a number of levels. So that's a very positive image. And reaching out to a communications consultant to help us doing that projection of our image, which includes getting feedback, which we did with a public survey, I think is a good combination of things that's going to keep our image growing positively throughout. Long-range planning, I delight in being able to tell people about 6 years of strategic planning, and even more so in actually having it as a basis for budgeting. I think that's exactly the right thing to do. That is outstanding management. And then to actually monitor and track the progress, and to actually come up with 80 to 90% completions on a fairly regular basis, pretty substantial accomplishment in that regard. So financial management, I mean, just as, again, Councilwoman Brodowski said a moment ago, we are financially sound in a lot of respects. And one of them, of course, is having a reserve of the size that we do. We also get excellent audit results on a regular basis, which says we're doing the right thing. Even our budget preparation process is rigorous and complete, and provides, at least to my way of thinking, a lot of information to justify the request and the budgets that are being proposed. So again, an excellent job there. And the completion of capital projects. Actually, at some point, if we ever want to talk about kind of revisiting these elements, might want to roll that in to long-range planning or something of that nature, or be a little bit clearer on why we have that pulled out separately. I know it's a lot of money, but so too is our operating budget. But in any case, again, a lot of things accomplished, and that's despite a very large workload. One of the things that I value is recognizing that you need some additional help, some additional staff help, and whether it be through a outsourcing, or whether it be through a part-time hire, or whether it be through a full-time hire. I've seen our village manager reach out and help make those changes to be able to accommodate the workloads in an intelligent, reasonable way. So that goes to actually completion of the projects. Communications with the council. I've said just about every year, it's really hard working for 5 bosses, and especially when each one of us has our own approach to doing things. It's a challenge in a lot of respects because of the demands that each of us puts on the village manager for information, each different, oftentimes in its own way. And so the improved responsiveness, and I have seen this over time, has been something that gives me a very good feeling, and also one of the things I've seen from our village manager is an inclination to do continuous improvement. So with that said, I would say that each one of us probably has skills that we could work on a bit, and we've had the conversation about continuing to work on soft skills in that particular area, and I think that's something that will make a huge difference as that area is focused on going forward. So that's kind of...
Okay, good. Richard.
Well, I kept mine pretty simple. I'm extremely happy that Ray's our village manager. I think he does an excellent job. If we had to rate, I'd rate him 5 on everything except for the completion direction of capital projects, which is a 4 because he can't control those people, unfortunately. My Seminoles crushed his Gators in football again, so that always works in his favor. And by the way, FSU did win the College World Series in softball, but the Gators have 2, so that's, we're just following his his way. But in any event, and see, I get to harass him about stuff like that. So I enjoy it. I'm just saying, as I've told Ray a lot of times, I'm glad to have him aboard and to direct our municipality, and he is respected, throughout the community. I've run into several managers and representatives from around the county, and they said how well-run our village is, and particularly the managers. One was from Lake Worth, and I don't know where the other guy was from, who complimented me on, how lucky we were to have Ray, and that's a good thing to hear. So that's it.
Okay, good. Selena?
Unfortunately, like Councilman Valentis, I cannot rib you on your alumni, your Gators, because you refused to play the University of Miami in football. So,
still,
yes. After the last whipping,
they played in like 2020 or something, or.
So I apologize. I cannot go on the same banter with you on that, but hopefully one day we can. Something along the lines with that Councilwoman Radusky did say, though, about employee retention, and it's the longevity. And all the organizations that I've been involved with and sat on the boards with or things like that, I always look at that. And when there's tremendous turnover, I start looking at leadership and wondering what's going on there. And that's a testament to your management with that. The rest of it, pretty much everyone else did already say, and it is hard to keep us all on track and focused because we all have our own interests and desires. My only thing is that you would tell me yes more than no. Because that rolls off your tongue really easy. You're quick to tell me, no, I can't do what I want to do, and throw me back in the line. But thank you very much for doing it. And it is hard to maintain all of this, plus the other 38,000 residents that we have in the village. So there are times where I've said to him, that I've said to the village manager, it's today you earned your paycheck. Because it was just like a rough day, and you could see all the emails going back and forth or things like that, though, so thanks.
Okay. I'd just like to say that I agree with really all of the positive comments that all of you have made about Ray. I say this often because people have come to me many times and said, gee, how come you guys are running so well? How come, and I say, well, for starters, we've got an excellent village manager and we've got an excellent council. So that's the honest answer.
Enough said.
Really, enough said, right? No, but Ray has really, I've watched him grow over the years and really mature in his role as village manager. For many years, when I evaluate anyone who's at the top of an organization in a COO type role, what I always look at is what outcomes are they creating? Are they creating the right outcomes? Are they creating outcomes that are positive for the organization? And I give Ray a 5 on all of those. All of these items here, all of these, when you put them together, is about what are the outcomes and where we need to be, and are we going in the right direction? A lot of different cities do a lot of different things that are right for them. And I think every city has to be honest about what's right for their city, and because one city does something doesn't mean it's good for us, and vice versa. So, but I feel really good, and as you all have experienced, I get nothing but positive feedback and compliments on Ray, and I want to make sure that no other agencies have an eye on him, because I like him to continue to be here. I think we're fortunate to have him here, and I don't want to, I come from a world on Wall Street where top people get, other organizations look for them. Yeah. Yep. So with that in mind, this year his contract's not up, but I think next year when his contract is up, I want us to really sit down and look at what we can do to make sure that he's unpoachable, so to speak, okay? But certainly this year, as we have done in past years, he's eligible for a 1 to 5%, not a increase, but a one-time payment, all right? It wouldn't be an add-on to his compensation, but just a one-time payment. And I'd like to recommend 5%, and I'd like to hear what you all think about that.
Make a motion for 5%.
If there's no further discussion, I'll take a motion.
Well, we could discuss, but that's my motion. If I get a second, I don't know.
It's a good motion. I think the way I tend to look at it is that the average salary for management last year was a 4.29, and I was going to make a recommendation of the 4.5. But I do that every year, and every year you tell me what's half a point. So I just had to say it.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All
Aye.
All in agreement? Yeah. I'm having a brain. All four?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no opposed.
That was easy.
Yeah, it's been a long, for us, it's been a long night, believe it or not.
Does he get any parting shots? Does
Jacqueline?
he get to fire back or no?
He's, you want to?
No, I would like to. I would like to
Okay.
say something.
Before you do that-
I appreciate everything that is said, and because he moved the 4 to 5%, we won't say anything about the Seminoles because it's the upcoming year. So, but I am very fortunate to work here. I very much like what I do for a living, and I very much like working for this council and working for the staff that we have here. I think we probably have more staff that live in Royal Palm Beach than any other city. Because they want to be here, and both the council and the staff always want what's best for Royal Palm Beach and its residents. And I have qualified staff, I've had experienced staff, and this place would fall apart if I micromanaged it, because they do know what they're doing, and they add at my weekly meetings, they add to it, and that's what makes this work is the individual input I get from each council, the input I get from the staff and the way we put it together in strategic planning, and from the Citizen Summit. I mean, we put all that stuff together. I was surprised when I looked through all our stuff to say, okay, all these Citizen Summits we've done over the years, many of those comments show up in the action items? Over half. So
yeah.
The input comes from everywhere. This job and what gets accomplished here, it gets accomplished because of everybody. It doesn't happen by one person whatsoever. And I'm very fortunate to be with the group of people I am. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Jacqueline, let the record show that the motion was approved 5-0.
And Mayor, I do have one more thing before we go. I'm sorry, I forgot to do this when we were on the EAB. Diane is going to kill me if I don't do this. I have a note from her saying, please get council to give direction to re-advertise the board vacancies for EAB. So if I can just have that direction
Okay,
publicly.
do we have a motion to re-advertise for EAB?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All approve?
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? No opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. Let the record show that we did what Diane told us to do.
Right.
Yes.
With that, I think
Or
we're...
words to that effect.
Yeah, something like that. I think we're
didn't
no
drop
further
the
items
ball.
on the agenda. We're adjourned. Thank you all.